guys, welcome back to some more AFK Arena. Today we're back over on the YouTube account and we have mere hours until the Abyssal Expedition, the Vault of Time, is going to be up. So I want to run through the team comps that I'm running. And of course, tomorrow we're going to go ahead and stream this, making sure that we have the availability to hop on here at 8 p.m. Now looking at the Vault of Time or the Abyssal Expedition overall, this is very important that you get things set. You really do need to get things set up before you get into here, because you have to know exactly what the game plan looks like. What are your top teams going to be? What heroes are you focused on based on the boss builds, and how are you going to take down the boss itself? Now, if you're in a competitive Abyssal Expedition, looks a little bit different, but I want to run through kind of the boss teams that we're going to be utilizing. Went through a bunch of different formations, and looking at team number one, this seems to be the one that has been the strongest. Went through a bunch of different iterations. A lot of this was shared because remember, this is the official version of the Abyssal Expedition. This is the one that is timed. This is the one that is trialed. And of course, we already had the beta version in here. This is running the Awaken or the Draconic version of Gwen. Now, if you don't have Gwen, the formations change in their entirety. Not going to focus and not going to worry about what am I running free to play, this or that. When it comes to this Abyssal Expedition, the very, very big thing to know is you get to really choose one specific tree that you're going to be building out at the beginning, that you're going to be putting all of your eggs in one basket. For majority of players, it is whatever you have the strongest faction. So if you have, or excuse me, not the faction, the classification. It's a little bit different with the relics in here. So even looking back here at the heroes themselves is depending on which classification you have. Now, I want to run through this because, again, this is something we're going to do live tomorrow, is looking at the Might faction. The Might faction does very, very well. They have a lot of strong heroes within here. Now, the tanking faction is another one or the tanking class is another one very strong. Now, the reason is when you get to level 3 within the relics, they have the ability to negate whatever negative effect that the towers have, meaning the tank classification, very good to go in here if you're a newer player, if you have some tanks. The Ranger, the exact same. Now, the problem with the Ranger, sometimes they can be a little bit squishy, but they still work incredibly well. So if you do have a lot of the Ranger classification, you can go in there and you can run it. Now, some players have tried the Mage. Now, the problem with the Mage is survivability. When it comes to mages themselves, again, a lot more of the squishy factor when you start getting into some of the higher, the tier 4, tier 5s, tier 6s. Running mage-specific relics is incredibly difficult if you don't have these really super high builds, which for a majority of players, you'll see a lot bigger benefit in other places. And this will be essentially where you're starved on. If you're new to the Abyssal Expedition, a lot of this will make sense when we start actually doing this. And then, of course, for the last one is support. Last time, I believe we did run support. Support is another one where it's a little bit more difficult to get through. I know we have Liberta, I know we have a couple different heroes, but if you're focused primarily in the support tree, it is very hard to make progression because you do kind of need a secondary tree with some heroes in there that are going to do very well. So when you go in there, you want to pick one specific classification. And like I said, between the warrior, the tank, and the ranger, you want to choose one of those three based on the best heroes you have within that class. So if I'm sitting on a ton of Rangers, if I built out a bunch of Rangers and I'm using them, my biggest, strongest, highest heroes are Rangers. When you start putting relics behind them, it is going to amplify exactly what they can do, which of course breaks us into the boss teams. So in here, like I said, we have the Draconic version of Gwen. Now, when you think of this team specifically, it is all about the Awakened version of Gwen and being able to amplify. So we have Rosaline, that is Falling Gwen. We have, of course, Demia in here. That is going to provide some buffs. We have Silas in here, which is going to provide, again, some higher attack buffs. Also some immunity. Now, the big thing with Silas is the immunity he provides will keep you through and alive during the bosses in Rage. Now, another thing to note in here is when it comes to collections, it is super ultra specific on the collections you have. Even running Demia right here with this Captive Wings. Captive Wings, you have to have this level 2 skill, which will keep Demia alive. In turn, Demia can keep your team alive. If you don't have that, this formation will fold pretty quick. And then Aethys in here as a big crowd control tank that we see here on the bottom, taking a lot of damage. Then, of course, we have the Panda Dumpty up here. So it is a really strong combination when it comes to the boss modes. Now in here, this is another one. very interesting to see is we have the awakened version of Leica, and then we have Grez in here. Now, Grez is a hero through pretty much every Abyssal expedition. He has done very, very well. Overall with the minions, overall with the bosses, he does well in there because a lot of the minions have the shield. And when you think of going the entire term in here, he can do it well. He gets buffs out from Mortis. And then also the twins are in here as the haste effect. If you don't have some of these support heroes, you can go literally into support classifications. And depending what you're running, we don't know what Randall is going to bring. But again, if you are looking at a bunch of different heroes like Nevi would work well in here if you did not have Shuna. Even looking at Halos, looking at a lot of other heroes that would be very similar in the support role to what we see in here. Even looking like a Joan or a Merlin, even looking, you know, some energy regeneration from Aziz or Rowan. There are a lot of other heroes in here that will fill the support role and will do incredibly well. Third one we look at is, of course, the original version of Baden. We're still seeing this super broke within the Cursed Realm. Then we have Lucius in here as well as some other, we have Liberta and Lucilla in here, and then Trishea. So Trishea was used in a bunch of different combinations doing incredibly well. We have the Owl up here for kind of the protection aspect. So we know between both of these guys, they are going to be tanking everything. And of course, the original version of Baden still pretty broke when it comes to the damage, just for the fact that he can spam up those little shadows, meaning the boss dynamic and really the way the boss works does require a hero like that. Now, looking at our fourth team in here, this is one that is running Athalia and then Chimera. We have the awakened version of Solus back here. Naruko in here again as a tank, as a buffer with Nadia. And then we do have Ivan in here. Ivan is going to be buffing up the awakened version of Athalia. And of course, Chimera, very, very strong to kill in here. So Athalia is going to be the driving damage within this one. And then we do have Naruko and we do have the awakened version of Solus to keep them alive, with the Savage Souffle really running it. And the final team, and unfortunately probably one of the lower producing teams, is running this awakened version of Belinda in here. Now, of course, we have Rimuru in here, which as a mage support kind of buffer, still does incredibly well. Again, if you're not running that, Gavis could work in here as a substitute. You could also look at a couple other heroes that could possibly substitute into this formation. Unfortunately, Rem is not being used in this one, but overall, 5 pretty solid teams that, of course, the higher that you have these heroes built, the better they are going to perform when it comes to damage. And you can go ahead, you can set all of your teams, you can run the boss trials, you can see exactly what it's going to look like in here based on the boss, and what your damage kind of is going to be calculated at running, again, kind of a boss scenario in here. And you can see right up front, Aethys goes right up front. We have a lot of damage that is being put out by Gwen. There's the immunity from Silas, also the buffing. We have his little, and he does go down early in this one. I tried to get him to survive. I switched up some collections. I changed up a couple different things. Unfortunately, didn't make a big difference. But you'll see even going through here on this boss battle, we're pulling about 22 billion damage, which is pretty good. So again, when we get in here tomorrow, we're going to go through the opening process of the Abyssal Expedition, go through and slot a couple heroes in here and see exactly what it looks like in here when it comes to the Abyssal Expedition. It's a game mode personally I love. It is one of my absolute favorite game modes. Again, don't know the impact of Rando, not seeing him used a couple different places, and a lot of info that we're getting on what is going on right now with the Abyssal Expedition does come from the test servers, meaning that we're bringing a lot of information comps, everything we're getting out there. I know Ciro is going to have some guides. We have a lot more stuff that is coming down the pipeline when it comes to the Abyssal Expedition and when it comes to building out these heroes. All right, guys, so that is going to do it for today's video. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. And as always, thank you guys for watching.